So we haven't had a podcast, audio podcast like this in a while. We started back in 2016 on Anchor, and now Anchor is Spotify for podcasters. And one thing that we're going to talk about today is the demise of Moog in terms of being hand built in the U.S. They went and they got purchased by InMusic. They had initially promised that they would still build Moogs in the U.S., and then they went and fired 30 American workers from the factory in Asheville, North Carolina. And that's very disappointing because I purchased 3 Moogs from that factory that were hand built and actually had the tag on them. It says employer owned company. And now that's not the case. And now they're going to be built in Taiwan. And then, potentially the Moog secrets are going to get, cloned outside the U.S. And then we're going to get tons of clones, which we already get from Behringer. But just the hand-built nature of these machines was like part of the appeal. And lately we haven't seen anything new from them other than software instruments. They brought back the Mini Moog, but then they made it $5,000, which nobody could afford. Even when it was $3,000 and they brought it back, it was hard to afford. Now, the Moogs I have are the Mother 32, a 1 oscillator Moog that I have in my Eurorack, and another Moog is the DFAM, which is the drummer from another mother, and then the grandmother. And I'm debating whether I should get the Subharmonicon or the Mavis, or try to get a Matriarch from the stock that they already have. But really, one of the problems with Moog is they're custom instruments and they're very focused instruments that won't do everything you need. They're not a jack of all trades. So one of the problems I have is I have my Juno from Roland, which I've had since 2008. And that is my primary kind of multi-trimble synth. And the keys are starting to stick, and I kind of need to get a new multi-trimble or workstation synth, which is the workhorse of your studio, because sometimes you need a preset. Now, I love my Moogs and my analog synths, and they don't have these presets, but sometimes you need a piano, you need a string, you need a pad. You need polyphonic capability. So I'm looking at replacing my Roland Juno GI with a Roland Juno X, or looking at the new Yamaha. Now, one of the great things that Yamaha's brought back, and we're kind of diverging from the Moog conversation, but Yamaha was famous for the GX1 Dream Machine, which Stevie Wonder and used in the 70s on songs in the Key of Life. And also you had Keith Emerson used it. And what's great about that synth, it has polyphonic aftertouch. And the CS80 also had that. So that is something that people have been looking for to come back. We know that some synthesizer companies have brought it back, like Hydrasynth, and also we have on the new UDO, Super Gemini has it. But now a big workstation from Yamaha on their most expensive version has it, the 88 key Modus. So that is very impressive, but it's like $4,000. So it's getting toward Mini Moog territory. Or it's getting toward like Phantom territory, like the original Phantom, not the Phantom Zeros. So in my studio, I kind of need like a workhorse, and the Juno was always that kind of in between. So like you don't have $4,000, you only have 2. And the Juno X kind of gives you a lot of what you need. It's got, the really good pianos in it. It's got all the different models that you could bring in. You could bring a Jupiter, you can bring a SH101, you can XV80. So you can do a lot, and it gives you a lot of capability to have the sounds you need at the time you need them, like the pianos and the strings and the pads. So this is probably the problem that Moog ran into, and also during the COVID time, that they had an issue where they couldn't get supplies, they couldn't get parts, and so they weren't able to progress with a lot of new ideas. And it seems like the creation of the Moog 1 kind of put them in the same spot that the Memory Moog situation put them in back when they went out of business previously. The Memory Moog was this big effort, and then they kind of failed at it, and they went out of business, and they got purchased, and it wasn't the Moog everybody knew until it got reconfigured and it came back with the Voyager, and then we had this whole time period where Moog, prior to the COVID pandemic, they had these Moog Fest, and they had a lot of energy behind the different festivals they'd have, where you could go and actually hand build like a Mother 32 or any of the Mother series. A lot of those were in these special shops during the Moog convention, and you could actually put together a Moog and bring it home. And that's where the subharmonicon and a DFAM, and they had a vocoder, and they had some other things. They had a brother from another mother. They had a bunch of different things that were really a lot of energy was focused. And really the greatest, synth they built is the grandmother, which was a really awesome synth because I use it every day. It's a $700 synth, but it has a keyboard unlike the Mother 32 and the DFAM, and it's not as expensive as the Matriarch, which is like $2,000. And it's not as expensive as the Mini Moog, which is like $5,000. So it gives you kind of a piece of a Mini Moog, not the whole thing, but a lot of capability. Some things that the Mini Moog doesn't have. It's modular, has CV patch points. Mini Moog doesn't have that. Has a spring reverb. Mini Moog doesn't have that. Has a sequencer. Mini Moog doesn't have that. So it's got some capabilities for the money, makes it one of the best Moogs ever built. And it's just sad to see that now Moog, isn't going to be hand making these in the U.S. anymore. And to me, that's a real shame. I mean, I love my Akai Force, but I connected to my Moog grandmother. And I use my Mother 32 and my DFAM all the time, and I really wouldn't replace these Moog sounds with soft synth sounds. And I hope that InMusic isn't going to just suddenly make the Akai MPCs and Force just have these digital versions of Moog sounds now that they own it. And I'm kind of scared that that's what they're going to do. Or they're going to, what they could do is are they going to make an affordable version of the Moog 1? Make it so it's like, $1,500 to $2,000 instead of $7,000. Now, if they did that, that would be very impressive, but it's still sad that that's not being built in the U.S. But that's the state that the world's in. The fact that we can't get a made in the U.S. Moog like we used to, like the Mother 32s and the DFAMs, those are all going to be overseas, from my understanding. The only thing that's going to be built in Asheville is the Moog 1, and I'm not sure if that's going to be built there that much longer. So if people say, well, it's the way the world goes. Yeah, it's the way the world goes, but there was something that, as a consumer of Moog products, I bought 3 of them. The fact that they're hand built, the fact that they're made in America was part of their appeal, which I don't know if a lot of people understand. That there's some people who are really kind of rebelling against the fact that Moog did that, and I'm not sure if they're going to get the people buying the core Moog audience. They might have left unless they come out with something that's really impressive, other than soft synth plugins like Moog Foggers, and actually build a Matriarch that's like $1,000 and a Moog 1 that's like $1,500, $2,000. Because right now, there's a lot of energy going to analog solutions. They've got crazy synths. like the Colossus, which is like $30,000 to $60,000. And they've also got affordable scents that are in the 2,000 to 600, $500 range. And they've got, the handmade appeal. They're made in England, but they've got that, VCS, EMS VCS3 kind of heritage going on. And so in a world where there's not a lot of analog, Pittsburgh Modular is still around. Make noise, but I don't know where they're sourced from, but I know Pittsburgh Modular, my understanding is that's the US. And I've got one component from them, a mixer, and I'm very interested in looking at some of their stuff. Their stuff's really good too. But I think it's just having sonic scaping tools that give you a lot of feel comes from the fact that they're hand built and that they're not just coming from some big corporate machine like the Rolands and the Korgs and the Yamahas. Now, like I said before, the Yamaha has brought back a really cool synth in their new Modix range, but the problem is, it costs like $4,000 to get the polyphonic aftertouch. So if you're looking at something like that, again, I'm looking at another English manufacturer, UDO, and UDO's Super Gemini is, analog and digital hybrid with total control surface to control two synths at one time and polyphonic aftertouch. So that gives you a lot of capability, but it doesn't have the full flexibility of a Yamaha with the touch screen and the ability to do workstation. So you have to make a decision. Do you want a workstation like a Roland Phantom or Modus from Yamaha, or do you want a kind of real kind of Jupiter 8 inspired synth, which is like, to me, like the UDO, or it's CS80 kind of inspired too. And it holds patches, but it's not a do everything kind of, Swiss knife type of synth, like what you get with the Yamaha and the Roland. So that's why, the boutique market of having, Prophet and Moog and Make Noise and Pittsburgh Modular is getting weaker because there's a lot of people, a lot of kids are using the soft synths, they're using their DAWs, they're using, Akai MPCs, they're using a lot of, digital audio workstation type of controls. And not really coming from the point of a keyboard player or a synthesist that wants those, hands-on controls that you get from a Moog or you get from the older type of designs. An analog solution is still pushing a 1970s, 60s motif, and they're actually doing very well. Where Moog somehow lost sight of that in terms of being able to market it the way Analog Solutions is. The Analog Solutions is maybe because they're in Europe, they had access to the materials or whatever. I don't know what happened, but Moog kind of ran into a situation where they ran out of money, had to get bought out, and then their people were let go. And that's like the worst situation to happen, since the 70s. When they got knocked out because of the Yamaha DX7. And they recovered from that, but now I don't know if they're ever going to recover like they recovered from the DX7 situation. So it's very disappointing to have Moog off the table in the way that they used to be, which is an employee-owned company making hand-built stuff in the U.S. Now, if they continue to make instruments, some people might not ever know that happened. But a lot of diehards, we're going to see what the next big Moog is, and we're going to be comparing it to the grandmother and the matriarch and the mother 32 and the DFAM in the Mavis and the Mini Moog. So we're going to hope that that's going to be, fixed. So we're gonna wait and we're gonna see. But Analog Solutions might be pulling a lot of Moog fans. Pittsburgh Modular, the people who still build them by hand, are gonna start getting a lot of people going to them. So this is kind of like a big nerdy episode about synths, and it's audio only, but this is what we're into. You should check out Phantom Electric Ghost. We're on all streaming services. Our latest album is out there, and check it out, Polyportafida. It features a combination of hardware synths like the Moog Grandmother, the Mother 32, Roland JD08, and the Kai Force, Roland Juno GI, JDXI, System 1M synth, all done without using DAWs, using hardware multi-track recorders. Check it out. It's on all streaming services. That's Polyportafida. And check it out on Spotify or Apple or any streaming service that you like. And again, we are a featured podcast on the Newsly platform, so use coupon code GHOST and get 1 month free premium subscription.